What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys are doing well out there. Time to talk about Block, otherwise known as Square, still with the ticker symbol SQ. Now, over the last year, this thing's down big, down 65%, but during the regular session, this thing was up 7%. Then they reported their Q4 earnings. We'll take a look at them. They had revenue of $4.08 billion. That did beat expectations by a little bit. And then we'll take a look at them here from the financial perspective. We'll run through all the costs as well. I think you definitely want to stick around for that. And then we'll look at this from a technical perspective, because as I was about to say, this stock in the after hours is exploding, up 26%, at least on this chart. Now, I think what we have maybe is a little bit of a short squeeze, because people were very bearish this stock and they probably made a lot of money. Okay, 9% short interest on a $54 billion stock is actually pretty significant, and I think that's what we're seeing evidence in the after hours. We'll talk about what that means from a technical perspective, and I definitely think you want to stick around for the technical segment of the show. Even if you're not interested in Block, you probably have some stocks that have made this formation. Okay, they made some March lows somewhere, then they went on an epic rally, and now they've come crashing down in like literally a month or two. And we'll talk about, because we've talked about waiting for a sign of reversal, wait for the down leg to look like it's over. Well, Square gave us the very first sign when you make obviously a 26% move in the after hours. If it's a short squeeze, we'll talk about what that means. We'll also talk about some levels. Look, on the ways up, you don't just go straight up. You have pullbacks. This is what buying the dip is. We'll talk about, can we potentially do that with Square going forward? Let's jump into the Q4 numbers. They came in right about $4 billion. That was up 29% year over year. Initially, the shares fell by about 4%. I'm not exactly sure what's surging these shares in the after hours, especially when we go through these revenues, the financials. I just did a video on Coinbase from a profitability perspective, even a revenue growth perspective. This company is not actually as exciting as Coinbase, but what I wanted to do is look forward a little bit when it came to Square. And so we've got annual EPS estimates at the most recent quarter expected to be $1.67. The company actually for the full year was way under that. Maybe these are some adjusted numbers or something like that. Whenever I see something that off, I'm assuming that either these numbers are off or the analysts are adjusting for something on this EPS side, because you see here for the year ended, the company only made 33 cents per share, and most people for 2021 were expecting closer to $1.67. So my numbers could be off, but either way, in that case, I'm not going to factor in EPS. So whenever you run into something like that where the numbers are a little bit off, you have to either dig through and do a little bit more research, or really what I want to do is look for the annual estimates that are coming up for Square. We see in the most recent quarter expected to do about $17.6 billion. I think I said quarter, I meant for the full year. Company's expected to do $17.6 billion. That's the number that they hit on. Okay. Now for the annual EPS, I see for the upcoming year, we only have 5 analysts estimating on that, but we've got about $20 billion. So they're still projecting revenue growth. And if you look at it from a price to sales basis, because it's hard to look from price to earnings on this one, I'll show you in the most recent quarter, this company didn't make money. Now on the full year that they did, but it could be that they're not projected towards that in the upcoming year. But if you look at it from a price to sales basis, especially when we look out into next year, you're paying between about 2 and 3 times on this one. And then what you want to do is when you see a 2 to 3 times sales number on a stock like Square, what I like to do is I like to bring up a historical graph of their price to sales. And I like to see, is there areas where buyers tend to step in? And quite frankly, yes, with Square, underneath about 5 times sales, we've seen over the history of this company, we could max it out to 10 if you want. And look, when it's been under 5, it took a while for this company to ramp up. Okay. They've built on their platform. They've have more services and products that they're offering these days, but it bottomed out back in March of 2020. You know, that was a major down leg for all stocks, including this one. It bottomed out somewhere underneath 5 times sales, did a big rally. Now here we are underneath 5 times sales, and we're seeing in the after hours, at least initially, the stock is popping. And so that could have something to do with it as well. Now let's come over these financials. We'll talk about how we had this $4 billion worth of revenue for the full year, the 17.6. We have lots of cost over at this company. Okay. Total cost of revenue came in at $2.8 billion. So you take this $4 billion, you minus off 2.8, and you get to about $1.1 billion worth of gross profit. profit. Last year we're sitting at 803. So from 803 million up to $1.1 billion. Not electric growth on that gross profit side, but not bad. Okay, but unfortunately this company has other expenses. They've got product and development, sales and marketing, G&A. They also have these transaction and loan losses, which I know ballooned in the last year. Okay, without stimulus checks, PPP loans, those types of things, you'd actually start expecting consumers to start defaulting more and businesses as well. And that's what you're seeing over at Square. You went from about 16 million of those loan losses all the way up to 57. It did impact profitability, honestly, because as you'd expect when you have this type of revenue growth, you'd expect all these other costs to tick up. And it looks like they ticked up within reason. They went from 758 to 1.2 billion. So unfortunately, you take $1.19 billion worth of revenue and you minus off 1.2, and you guessed it, you get an operating loss on this one in the most recent quarter at $54 million. You were actually positive last year at 45, and you see for the full year, they had mainly positive quarters of operating income. They came in at 167 on that. So not a great quarter, quite frankly, from a profit perspective, but obviously when we look over to the stock chart, investors are looking past that to a certain degree, or at least short sellers are looking at that as well. And look, they researched the stock as well. There's a reason why they're short, and then there's a reason why they could, I'm not saying that's exactly the reason for this kind of pop that we see with this stock, but that could be one reason is they're looking at this report and they're seeing that things are actually not that bad. And then we see here from a cash perspective, company has plenty of cash, company has some long-term debt as well, but all things being considered, it's not crystal clean balance sheet, but it looks pretty good. From a cash flow perspective, it looks really good because they have a fair amount of stock-based compensation as well, over 600 million. And that's going to give you pretty solid stock-based compensation of about 847 in the full year. Excuse me, cash flows from operations at about 847. We talked about how they had a little bit more long-term debt. That's added on here as well. All things being considered, this isn't like electric growth, and certainly not electric from the profit perspective, but all things being considered, Square's held up pretty nicely. It could be people thought this was even worse than it was. The other thing is you just have technically oversold conditions on a lot of stocks. We see volume really increasing on this leg down. One thing that I want to point out with you before we get into the technical analysis is how fast these down legs go. Okay, the up leg with the stock started like a lot of stocks back in March of 2020, and it really ended. You could have legitimately held this stock from a technical perspective all the way until it got to about this point at about $199 per share. That would have been well over a year and a half on this stock. In fact, you could have held this stock all the way up until December and sold it here at $199, because once you broke through about 195-ish, that was acting as a key level of support with this stock. Once it broke through 195, that really should have triggered a sell at some point up in this range from a technical perspective. If you didn't happen to sell the stock, I don't blame you. It's just something to look out for in the future. If you want to do a little risk management, you want to take some profits, you're getting closer to retirement or closer to when you want to use the money, or you just simply don't want to lose money in the stock market or watch yourself lose money over 2 months. My main point was over 2.5 years, you could have held this stock and you would have gave back all the gains practically in just 2 months. So these down legs go a heck of a lot faster than the up legs. That's why here on the channel, we're not rushing in and buying stocks, because when they start these upper legs and they start these uptrends, they can last for years, whereas the downtrends go pretty quick and they can wipe you out pretty quick, especially if you jump in there a little bit too early. Now with Square, I'm going to draw a line where the stock is in the after hours. It's trading right here. We'll make that a green line since we are moving up in the after hours. Down, we were down here at $95 per share. Now we're all the way up here at 116. What's critical about this area is actually it takes out the previous highs. I'm going to remove a couple lines like this bottom line, but you see this red downward trend line that we've made. All along this trend line, we've been making lower sets of highs. So it's the opposite of an uptrend. When a stock's in an uptrend, it goes up, it pulls back a little bit, goes up more, pulls back a little bit, goes up more, pulls back a little bit. This was actually a pretty big downtrend, but then it went up more. It just keeps going. On a downtrend, the opposite is happening. We go down, we only come up a little bit. We go down a lot more, we come up a little bit. Notice what we've done more recently. We've gone down and we've come up actually a lot, and it takes out the previous sets of highs. The previous sets of highs along here, we're looking for kind of peaks in the mountain, so to speak. The before 95, it was up here at 116. So that's where the stock is. It not only will take out the lows that we have down here at 100, but it kind of is taking out the 116. Now, I'm going to tell you what a professional, disciplined trader would do. They would wait tomorrow for a candle to be here. Look, you can trade your money how you want to. I am going to give you the most sound way to do it, okay? And so if you wait for a candle to be put here, a real professional trader, one that's taken his lumps many, many, many times over the decades, would actually wait for 2 candles up above here. That would signal, at least in the shorter term, the potential for a reversal here. You're looking for 2 candles up above about the 116 level. You get up to 126. And some of you are saying, I can't wait. I got to get in there and buy. Remember what happens on an uptrend, okay? The stock will go up, it will go up, and then it will pull back. And we're more than likely going to retest this area again in the 116, call it up to 120 range. You get a pull back to there. A real professional trader would actually wait for one more candle up above here. That would show a series of higher highs and then lower lows on the way up. Then we're making what is now called an uptrend in the stock. You get something like this going on. You can buy this uptrend, okay? Because like I showed you at the beginning, this is almost the fact, especially when we're talking about mega cap companies with a lot of coverage, like a Block, like a Square. This company has a lot of eyeballs on it, okay? So the uptrends are going to last a heck of a long time on this one, especially if you can reverse momentum on this one. So we would expect this stock to kind of walk up this uptrend. You start making an uptrend, that's when you can buy. The odds of this stock snapping back, I'm not going to say is 0, but the odds of a $50 billion company, which I think this is, yeah, a $54 billion to go from 116 all the way back up over $200 in a matter of a month or two would be extraordinary. Now, we have seen that before. We've seen that with stocks back in March. If you believe this type of rally is to happen, well, you want to be aggressive on the bounce back. I don't necessarily think we need to be doing that at the current time. And probably for today's video, I don't need to get into that. I'll probably post a video this weekend on that. But when it comes to Square, this is actually one of the first stocks we've looked at. If it can close above this 116 area tomorrow and then really follow that up with some strong days and then likely a pullback back to that area, that could be actually the first sign of a reversal with a stock. This is exactly what you're looking for. From a fundamental perspective, I'm not like lit up and super excited about this one, but I know a lot of people in the comments are, and a lot of people have a little bit closer interaction with a company like this. So if you're certainly bullish this stock, you finally gotten kind of your first look at a reversal with this one from a technical perspective. We'll see if it follows through. Again, you want to be patient and disciplined and see if it follows through, unless you just want to hit the buy button on the stock tomorrow. I don't really care. You do whatever you feel is most comfortable for you. Again, what I explained to you was textbook, disciplined, patience, fundamental analysis. I'll let you decide how patient and disciplined you want to be with a stock like this. Again, still a $54 billion market cap on this one. We've got moderate growth, at least from a estimate perspective, in the upcoming year. And we've got a price to sales basis, which is really almost rock bottom on this one. So there's some fundamentals lining up on this one, and same with technicals. That's typically a good recipe for stocks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Good luck with your investments.